Hey, this is Big River Bigfoot over at the Millstream Gardens Conservation Area. This is the pavilion, and I've heard of some Bigfoot sightings in this area by the St. Francis River, so I'm going to go check it out. The plan today is to start at Millstream Gardens and go take the trail all the way to Silver Mines and come back. Here you can see some of the gear. I've got my trusty hiking stick, binoculars, knife, bear spray, and water pack to stay hydrated. It's a pretty nice day. Still lots of sunshine, so let's hit the trail. And if I see any sign, then I'll stop to investigate. Got this hiking stick. So I guess I'll talk about what got me interested in exploring this. The first time that I really found out about this whole Bigfoot thing being in Madison County is when I went to this Bigfoot group called the Southeast Missouri Bigfoot Research Group, and I met this guy named Bill at the group, and I found out that he actually lived close to me. He lived south of here in Fredericktown, over by Rockpile Mountain Wilderness. And people don't like to have their hot spots revealed, but he already moved away, so. Anyway, I met Bill, and he told me he moved out there, and one night he went outside to let the dog out, and his property was surrounded by the Mark Twain National Forest. He let the dog out in the yard, and he shined a flashlight to make sure there weren't any animals in the yard. And there it was. This big black shape in the backyard. And it looked just like a Bigfoot laying there in the backyard, and it was watching the trailer. And he said when he saw it, it just slowly looked at him, it got up, and it walked back into the woods. And he got so scared that he just went back inside. And so anyway, I met Bill, and I started going over to his house, and we would go camp out there. And I probably went over to his house 15 to 20 times, but I never saw anything. But he said that he saw Bigfoot 3 times over there when he lived there. One other time, he was driving down the gravel road, and they surprised one, and it ran across the road into the woods. It went so fast, he said, that they only saw the back half of it before it disappeared into the leaves. He said it was a massive sized one, much larger than a deer. And the third time Bill said he saw the Bigfoot, he said he was sitting in the backyard with a buddy, and they were by the campfire, and it was starting to get dark. And then they saw eye shine in the woods, and it was just dark enough that they couldn't make out much besides the eye shine of the creature. but they could kind of see the dark shapes of them. He said there were 3 that came up right to the edge of the yard. There was a large adult one and 2 smaller ones. There were 3 sets of eye shine. And he said that they just stayed back there in the trees where you couldn't see them very good. And they would move back and forth. And sometimes the adult one would stand up. And they said it must have been about 8 feet tall. He said the smaller ones were going back and forth. And sometimes they would come out of the trees a little bit into the yard. But all they could see were dark shadows of them. And he said the eyes seemed to have an orange color to them. And he said they stayed out there at the fire for about another hour just watching them hang out back there. And then a thunderstorm came, so they went back inside. So I don't know. I went camping out there a few times and I didn't see anything. One time we decided to leave a baked chicken on top of the shed, and we put it inside of a cooler and put a big cement block on top of the cooler. A couple weeks later, I went back out there. The chicken was gone, bones and all. The whole cooler was full of water. And the cement block was still on top of it. So I don't think the raccoons would have put the cement block back on top of the cooler if it was them. So that was a strange incident that I didn't get to see what happened. Bill believed that cameras would keep them away, so he didn't try to record them. He did say that he had game trail cameras out there for a while, and some of them went missing, and he got pictures. He said there was a gray thumb across one of the pictures that looked like this, just a gray thumb. And then the next picture there was nothing. And then another one that looked like another thumb. So he thinks that they discovered what the camera was, and they could see the infrared light. But he said he never had much luck with the cameras, so he quit using them. One day I went over there and Bill told me that he had a hunting knife, and he had stuck the knife in the tree just like this, and he came out the next day and the knife was gone. And he said, I know I left that knife in that tree right there. And he looks up higher in the tree, and the knife was stuck way up here, a foot or two higher, except the knife was buried way far deep in the tree. And he said he knew he didn't stick that knife up there, and he pulled it out, and the tip of the knife blade was broken off, and the tip of the blade was still stuck down here where he had put it the night before. Strange things would happen like that at his house. You know, he said he would hear them howl at night, sometimes during the day. He said another time he went out and saw there was a big oily smear across the window of his truck, and no matter how he washed it, it wouldn't come off. Almost as like someone took their finger and just wiped across the side of the window. He said sometimes at night he would hear a big thump on the side of the trailer, and he would hear stuff rummaging around, like the garden tools and stuff moving outside. Like I say, I never got to see anything when I went there. But there was one day when I went there, and I took my mom out there to the fire that they're having. And me, my mom, and Bill were all standing back in the corner of the yard where he said he saw the Bigfoot laying. And we heard a howl that came from back there in the woods. And nobody else lives back there. It didn't sound like a coyote. It didn't sound like a wolf. To me, it almost sounded like a car screeching its tires, but there was no sound of a motor. It was like, but it was like, it sounded like a creature howl. So that was the one thing that happened out there, besides hearing all Bill's stories, that made me think that there was something in this area. But now Bill's moved off to Oklahoma. I'm hoping that he'll be able to come back this fall and we can go camp again. When I'm looking for some signs, I try to look for things that are unusual. Like, see how this tree is broken right here? And there's another log laying right under it, pointing the same way. So if this tree fell over and busted, how did the rest of it get all the way up there? It's pointing that way, and so is this tree busted right here and also pointing that way. And then this big limb laying on top had to come from somewhere. So where did it bust off from? Maybe it fell from up there. Interesting. Stuff like that makes me wonder. Another thing I look for are several signs in the same place. Like there might be an X structure, tree breaks, arches, things like that, all in the same place. That'd be a good hideout right there. There was a tornado that came through Fredericktown not long ago, so I'd imagine a lot of this is from that getting blown over. These trees are blown over the same direction as those other ones. And we did have a nice storm that makes the trees bend over like that sometimes. So I never just assume anything unless I see how it happened. I'm not going to jump to any conclusions.